we have one of the lenses from the Supreme Radiance line that Zeiss has come out with, and beautiful lenses. This class, this section, is all about the anatomy of a lens because Hay was talking to me, and even though it's, not necessary that you know all of the numbers on a lens or what the rings do, it does help provide some context towards placing yourself within the world of lenses and possibly within your performance as well.
Yeah, it's just great to have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on inside so that you can make sense of what you're being asked for.
Great. So ask away. What are kind of the questions you have as an actor for lenses?
Okay. Well, I'm so excited to actually be allowed to touch this. I've never been allowed. So, you can see that I'm holding it in a certain way. I was taught by Indy that that's the right way to do it. So I'm going to try to hold it like this the whole time. Will you explain the different ends of the lens and what's on one end, what's on the other, which end even goes into the camera?
Sure, yeah. And it's so funny, and that's why I'm so happy that Haley is here, because I would tend to go into the technical, and to have someone who's just like, tell me the basics, what do I need to know, is a really important part of this process.
I don't even have the words to ask.
You're like, what do I, yeah.
What's the ends?
Yeah, okay, yeah. We have the front and the back of the lens, and the elements, as we call them, that exist in between. So your rear, the back of it is where it's going to go into the camera, and it'll be in front of the sensor, and there's a PL mount on the back with smart connections that give the camera access to all of the information. So what's happening when you're turning the lens in any way, any of the rings, is going to go into the metadata of the camera, and that's already getting maybe a little too technical.
What's metadata?
Oh no. Metadata is just all of the information that might be needed for VFX or for continuity. If you're going to be doing reshoots, you might want that same information so that you can reshoot the scene in the same way. So even down to like when you're racking focus.
Okay.
Racking is when you're going from one thing that's in focus to another thing that's in focus within the shot.
So this lens is smart enough to know where you placed the focus. I don't know.
Yeah, everything. It records all of it.
It records it. Does it record when it happens?
Yeah, it's all live. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then so the different rings that exist are the T ring, which is your aperture blades, and aperture, which I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see as it's opening. Yeah, you can see a little as it's opening and closing. Yeah. So it's kind of the eye of the lens, and so how much light is being let in, which directly reflects your depth of field and how much is going to be in focus. The bigger the number, so when you're at a 22, the bigger the number, the more that is going to be in focus, versus the lower the number, so a 1.5 is our minimum here. That is going to be a lot of light being let in, but in turn, a very shallow depth of field. And what that would mean for your performance is that you will have less movement, you will have less room to play without there being any focus adjustment whatsoever. And that would be an example of if you were sitting down at a table and you're on a long lens and you're at that low number, you're at that 1.5, you're going to get a lot of light being let in, but in turn, if you're moving at all, any slight back and forth movement, that's going to be going out of focus. And so that's when it becomes a little harder to capture that performance because it's so quick back and forth. And at times, it can be a little bit of a jolt to an audience, depending on how tight that frame is. And that's how that would be relevant to an actor. On the front here, we have our focus ring, and that goes from infinity until every lens has a minimum focus or close focus, which we talked about when we were doing Steadicam. Here we're just under 14 inches, so about a foot is what you're able to play with when you're in front of the camera. So if you were having a really dramatic scene and you're moving a lot and you want it to be going in and out of focus, and your character's running and you're, handheld and you're running gun and down the street, and there's that visceral moment where you want to get right into the lens. You, as an actor, intuitively, you might know, okay, they're on a 21 of the Supreme Primes. I can ask what my minimum focus is. I can ask my op or my AC camera assistant, and they would know in turn that, okay, I have a foot to play, so I won't go closer than that, because then you won't be able to see that emotion that I'm so captivating on screen. No, I'm just...
Yeah, the minimum focus is as close as you can get to the camera.
Correct.
If you get any closer than that, you're blurry.
Correct. I can give this back to you now. Let's
okay,
switch.
Trade.
Yeah.
Let's see if I remember.
Yep.
This is how you hold it.
Yeah. Does that feel secure?
Yes.
Good. What other questions do you have about lenses?
Can you just tell me in very basic, easy to understand for actors language, how does it work?
A lens.
Yeah, how does a lens work? Just the basics, just the basics.
So you have all of these different glass elements that exist, and every lens has a different size and number of elements that line up from front to back. And what happens is, as the rays of light enter the lens, they focus, and what's captured at the back through the sensor of the camera is your image. So it's just helping your image focus up. And each lens has a different, you've like convex, concave, but each element has a different purpose in order to get you to the back of the lens to get your image and capture that. So it's light rays focusing within glass.
Okay, so this end lines up with a sensor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, I have one more question about minimum focus.
Yeah.
Where on this lens does it say the minimum focus? Just
we have it right
point
here,
it out so they
right
can
there.
see. Okay,
So it goes beyond. So right now, this line here goes beyond what's actually written, and that's really typical on lenses. But so it's precise. Your focus puller might go to like 14, and then if you as an actor lean in too far, they'll be like, oh, I hope I can get an extra,
they try to push it a little bit.
Yeah, but the last markable spot is a 14-inch.
So as an actor, if you say, what's my minimum focus, and they say 14, hit that 14. Don't make them squeeze a little bit more out. Get your 14. You can do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why there's the wiggle room, though, is because obviously our bodies naturally have a movement and rhythm to them, and so it gives us the flexibility of working around the 14 mark.
Yeah.
But just having an idea of, okay, I need to be a little more than a foot away from camera for that scene is going to be a really important part of the process of working with your operator or your DP or director.
Yeah. So explain to me, now that we know about minimum focus, which we can see here, and we know we're on a 21, which is the focal length of this lens, what does that mean for our depth of field and the amount of space that we have to play in?
So a good rule of thumb is that the longer the lens, meaning the higher the number on the lens, whatever focal length you're looking at, the less depth of field there is, or the shallower it becomes. So the less room you have to play in. So whether it's at the 22, which is our maximum on this lens, or at a 1.5 all the way, as we would say, open. So letting all the light in when it is really shallow. If you're on a 20, if you have a 20 and you have an 85 next to each other, and you open both to a 1.5, the 20 is going to have way more room to play in than an 85 will. An 85 is going to be so shallow that you will probably be choosing what eyelash you want in focus, or what ear, even if you're like facing camera. So it's one of those like rule of thumbs that the longer the lens, the shallower inherently that depth of field will become, and the less room and the more specific you have to be with the movement choices you are making. One thing to also note is that going into a project, a DP and a lot of the time the director will decide on what stop, so T-stop, the mark on the lens here, you will choose to shoot the film at. And sometimes that'll change based off of like if your interior, exterior, available light, what kind of style the film is. But a lot of the time you'll hear, okay, we're gonna be shooting this predominantly at a 4, we're gonna light to a 4. And that's so we get enough light that we can open to a 4, get that amount of depth of field, which is pretty shallow still, and be able to have enough light on set that it makes sense and we can kind of keep it consistent for us.
When you say depth of field is shallow, that means it's a smaller amount of room back and forth that you can play in and still be in focus.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah. It's more particular that we have to be when choosing to move, or as an actor as well, choosing your movement and how much that back and forth is, or how much when you're getting up from a chair, is your body like tilting forward when you get up, or do you know that you have a shallow depth of field and so you're considering that you don't want to go out of focus and so you want to just kind of more go straight up. So it's things like that that help with performance a little too,
Yes.
keeping it technical.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, cool.